Lowenstein, she's gone. Mowat. Orr. Smith.
Here.
Split.
Here.
All right.
We have a quorum. Thank you, Russ,
No
for helping
problem.
us. I guess I will now call the July meeting to order. Russ just called roll for you.
He's an executive director too, so you know.
He is. He's better at it. So now we will have audience participation.
Calling roll.
4 minutes, and first up is Tony Lupo from Salon Vox to talk to us about parking rates. Hi. Can you come to the microphone here, please? I'm going to have you on a timer. It'll beep when you're 4 minutes.
I don't think I'm going to need 4 minutes.
Okay.
But,
Thanks.
I got this email laying out what the plans are for parking. And a few months ago when we heard that parking rates and the structures in the lots were going to be increased, we were disappointed because a lot of our clients don't necessarily park in the streets, but park in the lots. And I think the majority of downtown traffic do park in the streets and the lots. And then seeing the new proposal to actually raise street parking meters for some of the most popular meters in the city, but not to actually lower the rates in the lots and the structures, is definitely much more appealing to us and some of the other downtown business owners I've spoken with. One of the reasons is that we actually provide validation for parking. It's an expense that is kind of expensive to us, but it's one of the perks that we offer our clients that we get the most positive feedback about. So in order to continue doing that, looking at our budget, it is becoming something that it's hard to justify in the budget, and I think if it were to be increased more and more and more, that would be something that we would have to cut, and it's something that we get a lot of positive feedback about. So we have an interest in keeping parking in lots and structures low, and I think with the new improvements for ePark, I looked at the list of a lot of the meters on the streets that will be affected by the increase, and a lot of them are new ePark meters. And I think that the convenience of being able to use credit card and dial in from your phone and use your credit card in that way will help alleviate some of the anger or dissatisfaction with the increase because it is more convenient. And I think people will be willing to pay a little bit more for those meters because they are a benefit and they're a luxury. But in terms of the lots and the structures, we don't want to see those go up. And the main reason is because we validate. That's pretty much it. Do you have any questions for me?
No, we don't take questions at this time, but we will take up the issue further on our agenda.
Sure. Thank you.
Thank you.
Is there anyone else who would like to address us for 4 minutes this afternoon? Okay. Item 3, reports from city boards and commissions. Ray Detter from
Sorry,
the
your
Downtown
time's up,
Area
Ray.
Citizens Advisory Council.
It's getting close.
The beeper went off. Your time's up.
See, now that's deducted, right?
I'm not counting against you.
Losing time every second.
The Citizens Advisory Council had our meeting last night at Conor O'Neill's, and we heard the presentation on the biz development in downtown Ann Arbor, and we came away from that very impressed with the possibilities of using tax assessments in order to enhance neighborhoods, and also the possibility of expanding that program, and all the residents, there are about 20 people who were from various areas, many of them residents, were all in favor of the project. And our meeting that followed that, also in Conor O'Neill's, without beer or wine, was devoted to 3 topics: parking meters, low-income housing, and A2D2 zoning, all of which are very important and very significant at this particular point in terms of the future. We want to congratulate Sandy Smith, both as a DDA member and also a city council member, for leading the way out of the city council's very unwise decision to help balance the budget by putting parking meters in residential neighborhoods. And the city council unanimously approved 2 resolutions sponsored by Sandy, as well as by Saber Briere, Karsten Hunke, and also Mike Anglin, to find other temporary sources of the needed budget funds. Sandy and I later met with the mayor, John Heefja, and we think that we came away from that feeling that we could move in the right direction with regard to the goals that we want. And of course, the first one is no more proposals for parking meters in residential neighborhoods. What we want is a facilitated and accelerated residential permit parking system for all the residential neighborhoods surrounding the downtown, as encouraged by the downtown plan, the central area plan, and also the DDA plan of 2003. And as I pointed out last month, the downtown plan also specifically seeks to accommodate all downtown parking activity within the DDA parking system. Now, that is what residents want, along with a well-planned and integrated transportation, parking, and development strategy for the area of the downtown. Of course, we see that also in the Transportation Committee and its work at this particular point in terms of putting all of that together. Our parking system, we all think, should operate as a system, and the DDA should organize and manage that system. And we hope our meeting with the mayor has helped move us in that direction. Our second discussion item last night dealt with the area of Courthouse Square, and also the whole general issue of affordable housing. You know that we're very concerned about the future of Courthouse Square. Its future is really endangered at this particular point. We also read, like you did, the article in the newspaper that said that those suggested places for supportive housing, A, B, and C, had little support from either the county or questionable support from the county and the city. So then the issue is, where is that 100 units going to go? What is the nature of our commitment? And last night we discussed that in terms of some of the possibilities. And we all know that there is supportive housing near downtown. We've got Dawn Farms, we've got Avalon Housing, we've got Baker Commons, we've got the other senior citizen locations within the area that has some degree of it. We also have the shelter within the area of the downtown. And what members thought is what we'd like to see is get some clear idea of exactly where the existing supportive housing is in the downtown and in the surrounding area, in order that we can make a wise decision with regard to where that 100 units is going to go, if it's going to go in the downtown. But the one thing that was clear last night in our meeting is that under no circumstances do we want a situation where Courthouse Square fails with 116 units of what were supposed to be affordable and also supportive housing at the same time that we're working to create another 100 units of supportive housing. And the last item is the issue of downtown zoning, and you know that that comes up on July 6th for first reading, and it also comes up on August the 6th for second reading. And with regard to that, what we want is we want something like everybody else does that we can call really predictable with regard to the nature of the future. We've been working on this for a number of years, and we hope that you're going to speak on that. But one thing that came out last night was the fact that we're very much opposed to anything that will increase the mass of the buildings in the downtown. Thanks.
Thank you, Ray. Item 4 on our agenda today is a presentation from Tom Crawford regarding bond options.
I just want to update you on the bonds for your underground parking structure. That project is around $58 million, as you recall, and we plan on around a $49, $50 million issuance of debt for that. We have laid out the plan for that issuance. That process is going. It came at a pretty good time, actually, from a debt issuance perspective. Normally, a project like this would be issued with a tax-exempt debt, so it's I think we assumed 5% rate, if I remember correctly. The market's at around 4.9, so we were close. More recently, the federal government had a stimulus package, ARRA, one of the stimulus bills passed. What it provides is a bond type that you can issue in the next 18 months. It's called Build America bonds. And what you do is, instead of issuing tax exempt, it's taxable, but then the federal government will subsidize 35% of your coupon rate. What that means for this project is the full amount of the debt can be covered by the Build America bonds, and if the marketplace buys them, and we think they would, and that would reduce the interest rate on this and create a savings of around $1.5 million over the term of the present value of $1.5 million over the term of the debt. So it's a nice opportunity. So we are going to have to, in order to issue that debt, because when the debt was originally issued, council had passed a resolution authorizing the normal tax-exempt debt, and this is going to be taxable. We need to technically go back to council, and I've got it scheduled for July 20th to have a separate, a new resolution that actually allows the issuance to be taxable and to utilize this benefit that we can get from the federal government. So that's scheduled for July 20th. The rest of the process, basically, I won't get into, but it would entail us basically selling the bonds on around August 5th and taking delivery around August 19th. So we're on schedule for that. Okay. Any questions?
A few brief questions.
Sure.
Roger.
So of they're basically just those two options, traditional tax exempt and these new taxable bonds, and your recommendation to council is to go with the taxable bonds.
So in a week and a half or so ago, they also came out with another version called the recovery zone bonds. Those are limited in the amount that they can issue. It's my recommendation you continue with that we use the Build America bonds. One of the primary reasons that you may be interested in is it will definitely change the timing of your issuance. The recovery bonds, not only the city was allocated a certain portion, it's like $11 million of one style, 17 another. It doesn't cover your full debt, and it also council's got to do more actions and resolutions. It would delay at least 1 to 3 months your issuance.
Okay.
So your timing plan for your project would be affected.
So your recommendation to council is to go with the Build
Build
America
America
bonds that would be funded approximately August 19th then?
We take receipt delivery around the 19th.
Okay, and other than the one action by council to authorize taxable bonds, that's the only action that
Yes.
needs to be taken? Okay.
I see a hand over.
I think you answered my question, though. So your recommendation will allow the bond still to go to issuance on August 5th with funding available then August 19th? Is that what that
Right.
is? Okay.
Okay. Yeah.
Good news.
Thank you.
Yes.
Thanks.
So, Tom, there's an effective rate then of the bonds at about 3.5%? Is that what
Around 4.5%.
around 4.5%?
Yeah.
Okay.
It's still 4/10, so yeah.
Right.
Yeah, it's up on
Still money,
50
yeah.
bucks.
Absolutely.
Any other questions? Thank you, Tom. Item 5, status of task force efforts with DDA membership, A2D2 steering committee.
The A2D2 steering committee, having been done for a while with the rezoning that having gone on to council, has taken up design guidelines. We met on, I believe it was June 4th, had a conference call with the consultant who's done the earlier design guidelines, and basically came up with a plan to proceed. They are going to, we're going to try to come up with a fairly concise, fairly short design guidelines that are not open to wide interpretation. The first task of the consultants is going to be to whittle down what we have now into having taken all the input from the rezoning and whittle down the design guidelines, take things out of that are currently were put into the zoning, try and get it as streamlined as we can as the base document that we then go forward on. So I believe that went to council in the middle of June for approval of the funding for that consultant, and I don't believe we have yet the next meeting scheduled, but we are going to be meeting periodically throughout the summer with an attempt to get the design guidelines to council in October.
Thank you. Any questions for Roger? Committee to discuss a mutually beneficial financial agreement with City Council. Renee?
We have not met, and I think we have one item to address today, which is that today is probably my last meeting as a DDA board member, so my position will have to be replaced, which is, of course, the job of the chair.
And council has seated their committee already, and those members are, somebody could remind me.
Mr. Graydon?
Just to clarify, the committee has not been seated. It's been
Seated.
announced for first reading, and
Okay.
second reading will come Monday, July 6th. The mayor nominated me, Margie Teal, and Carson Hawka.
Okay, thank you. So, given that Renee's term is going to be over soon, I would like to ask Sandy Smith to take Renee's place on our committee. I think that given that she's also on council and a member of this board here, I think it would be a good replacement for Renee, if you would be willing to serve. Sure. Thank you. Okay, so hopefully we'll have another update in September. Approval of minutes from June 3rd, 2009. Is there a motion to?
I will move to
Moved
approve
by
the
Lee,
minutes.
seconded by John Split. Any comments, questions, changes to the minutes? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
The minutes have been approved. We have minutes from our mid-year retreat, which was held on May 20th. Moved by
So moved.
Russ, seconded by Sandy. Any changes to those minutes? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Minutes are approved. Subcommittee reports. First is Transportation Committee with John Mowat. Here at the moment. Should we move to the next one? Hope you haven't heard from him.
Haven't heard any.
Okay, let's just move on to capital improvements, and we'll hope John shows up. If not, we can have somebody else from the committee take over for him. John, are you ready?
Sure.
Okay.
I'm ready. First of all, I have a resolution for you, which I will pass around. The Capital Improvements Committee met this morning at 10:30.
Oh, you got some?
I've got it. We received bids and opened them yesterday for the 5th Division project. We received bids from 5 contractors, and the lowest apparent bidder is Eastland Concrete Company of Holt, Michigan. You can see on, I gave away my copy, on the back, on the second, on the back, page 2 of what I've handed out, we have 5 bids before us. Eastland was significantly lower than the other bids, and being concerned about that, they were grilled by Adrian, and we are very satisfied that their bid is a solid bid, and so we are recommending that we award this bid to Eastland Concrete. Let me also point out that we don't have any options. This is an MDOT project, and we basically do need to accept the low bid if we don't have a great reason not to. And again, this company seems to be very solid. So I would like to move the resolution that you have before you.
And seconded by Lee. Do you have any other comments on the resolution?
I don't, other than the fact, I'm sorry, very quickly, that Beckett Rader estimated this phase of the project to be about $3.5 million, and as you can see, we're getting it for nearly $1 million less than that. So very pleased to see that.
Any other comments on the resolution? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Resolution passes.
On the Southwood Avenue parking structure, we sent out requests for qualifications for the first, I guess what we would call it the first phase, and we received 14 responses from contractors, and we will be reviewing those at the next Capital Improvements Committee meeting, getting the list honed down, and we hope to be choosing a contractor for the first phase, again the planning phase of the parking structure by August. And again, we may end up having to call a special meeting in August to approve that contract. Wayfinding, Adrian hasn't given me anything on wayfinding, but wayfinding is moving forward. I know Susan had some meetings this week about it, and expect to see signs going up soon. Our next meeting is next Wednesday, July 8th at 11 a.m. And again, anybody who's interested in having some input and looking at contractors going forward on the parking structure, please attend.
Thank you. Partnerships Committee, Sandy and Russ.
Why don't you go and I'll correct you?
Okay, are we married? Yes, well, the Partnership Committee is involved in several projects. The Energy Grant Saving Program continues to move along very well. We've gotten reports about many businesses that have applied for the first phase and are moving into the second phase. So I'm happy to say that seems to be a win-win for the DDA, for the downtown, for the businesses involved, and for future businesses as that project will be continued into the next fiscal year, we expect. We got a request from folks involved with the city's distribution of liquor licenses to assist them in some way, and as we contemplated that matter, we just didn't see how we could really help them in any significant way. Not that we don't want to be helpful, but it's not our, they're not our licenses, they're not our, we've provided advice in the past and will continue to do so when requested, but we don't plan to jump in the middle of that in any way. We also talked about the fact that maybe we should split the partnership committee and go back to a partnership kind of research and opportunities committee, but decided that we're going to put that one on hold for a while and just kind of keep on keeping on. There was a discussion about the Percent for Art program on several levels. And one of them was how we want to deal with our own money on our own projects, and we advised the DDA and the DDA staff that we really don't want to be in the position of choosing art ourselves, as tempting as that might be, and there's a structure in the city to deal with that. Or we could push things over to the architect that was involved in the project and have them help make those decisions about that. So there's a lot of detail here. Do you want to?
I think that we basically have to continue the dialogue. We didn't come to any great answers. We've requested a little bit more information, and we're going to go from there.
So we are trying to be prudent and thoughtful as it comes to providing that public amenity and being sensitive to the fiscal realities, the aesthetic realities, and the community dynamics. We have a resolution attached about sidewalk recycle containers, so we can turn to that. And I'll have to get the page here.
16.
Page 16. And we will purchase for the amount of $12,000, or I'm sorry, $25,000, some additional recycle containers that are manufactured, and we can get them very quickly and put them out.
Like this one here?
That's the example.
That would be a good, we like that one. The spaceship quality of it. It both works as a trash can and a recycle container. It's very, very cleverly engineered, actually. So I know the folks on TV can't see it because it's in the wrong part of the room, but you'll see them on the street if the motion passes. So would someone like to move the...
Support.
Moved by Roger, supported by Sandy. Any?
I just have a friendly amendment that I hope you would agree with, that the DDA logo appear on these recycled containers. Can that be done?
We actually discussed that
Okay.
and decided not to include that. But I think that administratively we can discuss that and either do that or not do that.
The reason against, when we talked about it, if I remember, and we thought that having our logo on an item that we had no control over emptying might reflect badly on us.
Very good.
Plus we might get calls to say that this is, and then we just have to call somebody else.
Okay, thank you. I withdraw my
The
resolve.
interesting piece on this is that the first one was a little bit of a pilot, and that we're no longer doing paper recycling on the streets because there's lack of a market for it. Well, the newspapers are not being carried around. People don't recycle paper on the street, so this is containers for containers only.
Any other comments? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
The resolution passes.
We also have a resolution here to sponsor DDA, City Council, and Downtown Association representatives to the International Downtown Association Conference, which is coming up in September. And this is very similar to what we've done in the past in terms of having a limited number of DDA, a limited number of City Council, and a limited number of community representative from downtown agencies. Again, our objective was to be prudent in terms of financial expenditures, but also provide the opportunity, this wonderful learning opportunity for this very, very effective and dynamic conference that has proven to be very effective in terms of finding out what other communities do, for example, on recycle containers, what they do in terms of downtown processes of maintenance, and also it was very effective, I know, in terms of the wayfinding, and lots of other things. It's a very effective conference for getting people informed, and again, our strategy has been to, open this up to downtown stakeholders, including a limited number of city council members, a limited number of DDA people, and a limited number of other folks from the downtown community. So we would like this resolution voted on if we could. And I would be happy to move it.
And I'll support it.
Supported by Sandy. Any discussion on the resolution? I just want to say that this year the committee decided to sponsor 2 planning commissioners in addition to the DDA and city council members, also 1 citizens advisory council member. I was able to attend at the DDA's request back when I was on planning commission. I thought it was a valuable experience to be able to go and take back that information to planning commission. So I was really glad that the committee is recommending 2 planning commissioners this year. I think it'll be great.
This session will be in Milwaukee, Wisconsin, and we eliminated the beer funding. So
Well, it comes out of the faucets in Milwaukee.
maybe that's why it was eliminated.
Any other comments? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
The resolution passes.
As a way to encourage the street vitality and also the 4 business associations in the downtown area, we have a program that will provide funding, essentially in the sense in the form of awards for window display contests that each of the downtown associations would operate. And the downtown associations are the areas around South University, the areas around State and Liberty, the areas around Main Street, and the areas around Carytown. Those are the 4 downtown associations. And we wanted to provide each of those associations $4,000 for a total of $16,000 to run a display contest, focused on window displays, but I suppose that the downtown associations could do, business decorations or other kinds of things like that. And again, it's to stimulate local businesses to pay attention to the way that their businesses are presented on the street, to create a kind of vitality and pedestrian friendliness aspect. And so we would like to spend $16,000, $4,000 to each of the 4 associations, for them to run this window display grant program. And I would like to move that.
And it's seconded by Sandy. Discussion.
Sounds like fun.
All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Passes.
And this final resolution resolution for action. I would like to turn over to my colleague Sandy Smith to discuss, and I'm removing myself from discussion and voting on this because I could possibly benefit, or not me personally, but my organization, the Michigan Theater Foundation, could benefit from this particular activity.
We have been setting aside dollars for capital improvement projects, as the city has, for public art. And we did so for the 4th Million parking structure expansion in the amount of $50,000. That grant was not able to be used within the time period that we've set aside for grants to be used, which is in the year and then the following year. So it is expiring as of today. Rather than having no art added because of the money that we set aside, we decided that we wanted to help some of the performing arts within the downtowns, performing arts organizations that are going to lose out on a lot of state funding. And it's what's the MCACA?
Michigan Council for Arts and Cultural Affairs.
Very good. So they are not giving the money that they have traditionally in the past, and it's really going to hurt a lot of our downtown performing arts. And so we have decided that this $50,000 can be used to give to downtown performing arts organizations. They have to either rent or own a building within and perform within the downtown. And we will do it based on the portion of the grant that they received previously from this organization. And I would like to move this forward.
And seconded by Renee. Is there discussion on this resolution?
I just want to say, when the Performance Network came out with their emergency fundraising, I thought maybe the DDA could do something to help. It didn't go anywhere. This is an excellent idea. I'm really pleased to see it on the agenda, so I would be supporting it.
Any other discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? And we'll note one abstention in the minutes. Okay, just wanted to count that we had enough votes left actually passing. Okay, moving on.
Yes, there's one other bit of business, and that is we typically hold our meeting the week after the DDA meeting. However, with consultation with my co-chair, Sandy Smith, we have decided to not hold our meeting on July the 8th. And we don't know exactly when we're going to meet, but it may be the second week in August or some other appropriate time with proper notification.
Thank you. Operations Committee and Roger.
Okay, I'd like to turn to page 21. I will give the update on our transportation or parking demand management. We have been going at this for about a year and a half now. This is based on the Nelson Nygaard recommendations. The most significant thing, I think, and we've gotten press, and you've probably seen them on the streets, and a number of you are wearing the shirts. The E-Park, we have installed the first 25 solar-powered parking kiosks in the central core of downtown. They are in use. They've been in use for about a week and a half now. They were put in last week. We've had people on the streets instructing people how to use them. I've talked with a number of staff people, and as well as people on the street. They seem to be being very enthusiastically received. I think generally younger people are very enthusiastic about them, particularly the ability to pay by cell phone. I think the farther one goes up in the age demographics, the probably less enthusiastic they are about them, because it is indeed changed from the way they've been using parking meters for their whole, not all, just some. And we've had, I say, a few negative comments, but generally it's been very positive. The biggest thing that I'd like to compliment the Republic Parking staff and the DDA staff is this installation has gone very well. This is new technology, solar powered, put together by cell phones. There's a lot of things that could have gone wrong and could have really been a disaster installing something like this, and it has gone remarkably well. And I again want to compliment the staff and Republic Parking on doing an excellent job of putting this new technology in. Ultimately, we hope to have 175 of these machines throughout the DDA area, but we're going to see how the first 25 work before we look at expanding the system. So that's the big thing. This is the first really visible new technology that we've had for our parking demand management system. And we'll be able to not only make it more convenient for people, but also we'll be able to collect more data, be able to analyze how people are parking a lot more, which is a critical aspect of our parking demand management. A few other updates. We have suspended the valet parking operation in Maynard at least until the summer. We may look at reinstating it in September. It was a pilot program that didn't do particularly well, certainly didn't meet the expectations we had for it. We did have a fair amount of, at least some demand toward the end of the week, Thursdays and Fridays, but those are pretty much the only times we got any significant usage out of them, and we thought with school out of session for the summer, we've been losing money at operating it, we would suspend it during the summer. So we have done that, and we'll take it up again in the fall. Our AVI cards, where you can essentially park in any structure and have the actual hourly costs charged to your credit card once a month. We are still in our pilot project. This is the 5th month of it, and we think we've worked pretty much all the bugs out of it. It seems to be working pretty effectively now. We still want to do it for a couple more months before we look at expanding the system. But that's another very key part of our parking demand management. And again, new technology, new software, and we want to make sure everything's going to be working correctly before we expand it. We are also going to magnetic encoded tickets for validation, replacing the stick-on stamps, and we should be starting the distribution of those quite soon. The only other thing on demand management is the customer service line we've put in place got 25 calls last month. And I'd like to answer any questions about it.
Yeah. How are merchants going to validate the magnetic?
The magnetic cards are like parking stamps. You can get either 1 hour or a 2 hour card. So if somebody takes their parking ticket sticker, or their parking ticket when they come into a parking structure. When they go out to pay, they give them both the regular parking ticket and then a validation ticket that they would get from the merchant. And on the automatic machines, they would just put both tickets in. And again, the merchants can buy either 1 hour or 2 hour tickets. But again, it helps us keep track of things electronically that we haven't been able to do before.
That's great.
Okay. Parking report on page 22. Again, keep saying this about every month. Even though we are in the depths of a severe recession, parking revenues still have gone up slightly over the same month a year ago, over May of 2008, 1.6%. With the exception of the permit lot at First and William, revenues were up in a majority of the operations. Hourly patrons are up significantly. This seems to fluctuate quite a bit month to month, but the overall revenue increase continues to show at least small increases at a time when logic would tell us that revenue should be falling. So the demand is still strong in the parking system. And I anecdotally, I who park in Maynard every day, usually during the summer when the school year is out, there's ample room in Maynard, and I'm noticing that it is, with the numbers on you pull in, it is, if not full, it is certainly very close to full frequently. And it's sort of unexpected. So I'll be glad to answer any questions about the parking report. Okay, moving on. First resolution. I would actually like to withdraw this resolution for today, but I'd like to give a little explanation about this. one of the key components of parking demand management is a market rate system, i.e. you charge more for the spaces that are in higher demand and less for the spaces that were in lower demand. After having about a year of Nelson Nygaard reports, after a year and a half of working on technology and putting the structure in place to do true demand management, we at the Operations Committee wanted to move forward with experimenting with some variable rates. To enable to put that forward, we would need a resolution for the board, and we would then send a memo to City Council to change those rates. City Council would have to reject the rates within 60 days so they would go into effect. We have a proposal we have put forth, actually two options that we have put forth, and there was concern raised at the Executive Committee that although we have been working on this in committee and we've been reporting it at the DDA for a year and a half, this effort in parking demand management isn't widely known or understood, and we were encouraged to spend a little more time both getting the word out on this and also coming up with a more comprehensive, longer range plan on how we would proceed with the variable rate parking. We're sort of a little chicken and egg thing here. Parking demand management is a very new concept. It hasn't been in place anywhere in the country for, California was less than 5 years probably. So there isn't a nice manual that tells you how to do it. You sort of have to jump in and experiment, see what results you get, and then start modifying it. And you can charge variation. There are lots of different ways of having variable parking rates. You can do it geographically. Street meters, parking structures. You can do it by time of day. Higher at the highest demands, lower at the lower demands. You can do it even in parking structures vertically. The roofs would be cheaper than the first floor. We put forward one based on geography because that's where we have the most knowledge of where the usage is in the system. We've done, thanks to our intern, have gotten some good data on how much revenue various parking meters generate in the DDA area. And we were going to start graduating parking meters based on how much revenue they generate, which is our indication of how much demand there is for them, as well as a couple surface lots and a couple structures. We've decided, or we are recommending that we delay implementing this for a couple months and come back with a little more complete plan on what the next steps would be. Although, indeed, the next steps are going to be somewhat modified based on the feedback we get from the initial things. There's also concern that we're generating some additional revenue here. This I would emphasize as sort of theoretical revenue, because when you change the rates, the whole idea is to change parking behavior. And so we don't really know how much revenue we're going to generate if we change these rates. So the hypothetical revenue is based on people not changing their behavior rather than with them changing their behavior. So in any case, we'd like to probably bring this back in September with a more detailed plan. We'll consult with the Transportation Committee to make sure we're all on the same page as far as where we like to go as far as the vision and the sort of long-term goal, and come up with a little more step-by-step approach and show how what we're proposing initially would fit into a longer range plan. So I would be glad to entertain questions or concerns.
Renee, I just wanted to say I appreciate the fact that you're willing to spend a little more time getting the public more engaged. But more importantly, I wanted to thank you personally for your efforts on this. And I'm not sure if everybody on the board is aware of the fact, but the whole Operations Committee has done a lot of work on this effort. But I really think this has been Roger's baby. I think this is something that you discovered years ago at an IDA conference, and it's something that I know that you've been pushing for and have really sort of pulled the rest of the board along. And so wherever this ends up going, I want to thank you for the leadership that you've provided in this area.
Thank you.
Here, here.
If that were a motion, I'd second it.
I agree.
Thank you very much. Appreciate that.
And I just also wanted to say that I really appreciate you pulling back the resolution to allow us some more time to kind of get the principles in place, because I think it's going to be really, rates are always controversial, and I think it'll be really important for us to have kind of a document in place that explains all of what we have been talking about for so long in terms of this transportation demand management, so that we know we can articulate very clearly where we're going, and I think everything should easily follow from there. Any other comments? Sandy?
I think it just also goes to show how integrated both the transportation and the operations committee really has become. And I would almost suggest that we allow time between, since they meet back to back, to allow an overlap period between the two committees, because they are hand in hand. Where does one start and the other one stop? So I think that's exactly where you've kind of come to right now.
Please.
I just want to second what Renee has said. Your leadership in this has been tremendous. And what I find so remarkable is the amount of data that we can generate from parking meters, structures, lots that we never used to be able to. And I know that you've been pushing Republic Parking to say, can we find this out? Can we find that out? And they're saying, yeah, we can do that. So this is the basis for our decision making. It's factual and data driven. Thank you.
And thanks for all the compliments. I'd certainly want to, again, thank DDA and Republic Parking staff. They've been doing all the hard work on all of this, and we're just sitting going, well, look at this. It's easy to say, go look at this, and they spend months trying to put the software and the procedures in place to be able to do all that. Okay. Thank you. Next, we have a resolution on another proposed parking rate change at 415 West Washington. This is it's on page
27.
27. Okay. I would like to move the resolution.
And it's seconded by Sandy.
Okay. This is in response to a city council resolution, and in part to help address the shortfall of the city budget that without putting in parking meters in residential areas. The 415 West Washington lot, the former city maintenance yard, has been a maintenance yard for decades until about a year or two ago, when the city moved out to their new maintenance facility and abandoned that yard. Their DDA passed a resolution to do some minimal fix-up to make that space usable for public parking. We put in some gravel, pay machines, sold both monthly permits at a very steeply discounted rate to get people to use it, as well as $2 entries, so it's an unattended lot. There was no formal agreement with the city on this lot, just that we told them we were going to go ahead and do this. It was done mostly at a staff level, so this is not part of the formal parking agreement between the DDA and the city. This is added after that parking agreement was put in place. And City Council has, and our sort of staff arranged agreement was that we'd start at very low rates. The DDA would get back the money we put in capital improvements and infrastructure on that site, and then split any proceeds after our operating costs. The council resolution requests that we increase the rates there from $40 a month for monthly permits to $80 a month. And I should note that our current regular monthly permits and structures now are at $130 a month. And the hourly entry should go from $2 an hour to $3 an hour, as it is at the First and Washington lot, just half a block away. And that all the revenue generated after DDA's both capital expenses and operating expenses should go to the city. And I would like to support this resolution. I say this has always been intended as a temporary lot, that eventually the lot would be sold and developed. That process, probably in part due to the economy, has not moved forward as rapidly as everyone had anticipated it would. To me, this seems like a way of helping out the city without having to change any agreements, since it is city property and outside of the existing parking agreement. And I would like to support the resolution and glad to answer any questions.
I will support it. I'd also like to comment that the city originally asked the DDA to put a parking lot here and fence it in as a security measure for that building. The building was empty. There was some worry that perhaps things might happen, and this has activated that area, and I know it's used heavily by the Y and also, of course, by the permit people. So I would strongly support this, and I think it's a good agreement.
John?
As long as we're doing the kudos thing, I would like to give kudos to Sandy Smith for working on this, and I think it's a good plan and a good compromise.
Renee?
I'm not going to be able to support this resolution. My concerns with it really are philosophical. I think the amount of dollars that we're talking about is going to be small, but I have a few concerns more in precedent that we're setting. I believe that this goes against the DDA's own stated policy that parking revenues should be reinvested back into our transportation system. I believe it goes against the Nelson-Nygaard recommendations that excess parking revenues generated in a district should remain in the district from which, or benefit the district from which they're collected. I think it sets a dangerous precedent that the purpose of DDA managed parking systems is to generate revenue for the city. I believe that it puts the cart before the horse, because I don't think the DDA has yet had our discussion or debate over whether or not it's appropriate to use profits generated from the parking system to support the city's general fund. And maybe a smaller point, I think there could be a danger in providing the city with a financial disincentive to close and repurpose surface parking structures if they're receiving revenue from those structures, so I won't be able to support the resolution today.
Anyone else? I have a question and then some comments to Roger. How do the $2 per entry, I feel silly even asking this, but I don't understand how those work. So is it $2 per hour, or is it
No.
you pay upon entering?
Yes,
and
there
stay
are
as long as you
machines
want?
that you can put dollar bills in, and we have this in a number of our structures and surface lots. You put $2 in, or $3, depending on the lot, and you get entry for as long as for 24 hours. Frequently, these are set up so as after a certain time in the afternoon, like at 4 o'clock, 3 to 4 o'clock in the afternoon, when the lots start to empty out and people are coming down for entertainment or to dine for the evening, they can pay one time and be there all evening. So we do this at Liberty Square, we do it at Ann Ashley, we do it at the First and Washington lot, and I don't have a whole list, but those are just some examples of where we use this type of system.
So I don't understand, when you have $40 per month or $2 upon entry, that kind of works out to be about the same if you're going to be parking there every day, that you, like a work day, a weekday working parker would pay about the same either way. But now the monthly rate is going up to $80. The $3 entry would actually be less paying per day.
Don't we start that?
So
I know at First in Washington, we don't start the $3 entry until the afternoon, though.
But it's a guaranteed.
This is all day
Is it?
at 4:15, but as Sandy said, it's guaranteed.
Mhm.
We'll get it.
So the benefit of paying about $20 more is that you know you can park there.
Mhm.
Okay. I also don't think I can support this at this time. I feel like there's a lot going. I understand. I completely understand that Sandy's efforts to make this shift from taking meters out of the neighborhoods and the money coming from here to help make that go away. But I feel like the DDA's already spoken to meters in the neighborhoods, and we really didn't support them being there, and we speculated as to the revenue that they would generate anyway. So now that we're taking this other lot, which we're running temporarily, generating extra revenue there and using it to offset a plan which we already thought was bad, I fundamentally don't think that this is in our interest to do this for all of the reasons that Renee said, and because I think it just kind of allows it allows the parking system to become something different than what we've tried to kind of holistically keep it as before. So although I understand the reasons that that City Council did this, and I think that was great a great thing for the neighborhoods to have happen, I just think that this is not something I can support as a DDA member. Sandy.
Just to counter, I look at this as a very temporary solution. It's a temporary lot, and The fact that this particular agreement, this is outside of the parking agreement, and knowing that there's going to be bigger discussions about what the agreement is, I felt that this was a good way to solve a lot of problems with the budget that we had at a very short notice. So it was a way to actually encourage more of the Nelson Nygaard philosophy of not putting the meters in, but going to the residential parking permits and start going to that around the ring of the city, which I think is furthering the goals of looking at the parking system as a whole. So I look at this as a very temporary situation and a way to solve a lot of problems that was not bound by anything more than a handshake, and that the revenues were not necessarily. We weren't even looking at very many revenues. We've doubled now, and we were only going to get half of the revenues once we broke even anyway. So I thought it was a very minor contribution on the DDA's part.
And just to respond to that, I totally agree. It is minor and it is temporary, and it may be outside the parking agreement, but we have this agreement in place that talks about downtown parking, and it's an agreement between the city and the DDA, and there are questions in my mind as to things that are happening currently that whether they fall within or outside the agreement. And to me, I feel like we have an agreement in place because it talks about parking as a system, as we've talked about it as a transportation system. And the very notion of putting meters in other places or of taking revenues here and giving it to the city, to me, is all within the parking agreement, within this kind of idea that we have that parking is a system that we manage. And so it may technically be outside the agreement, but I think it needs to be talked about in the context of the agreement, just like everything else. So it's hard for me to support it, although I completely sympathize with why with everything that you're saying. Russ, and then Keith.
I agree with everything that you said. I agree. I think that it's terrific that Renee articulated very clearly her philosophical opposition to it, and I think we as a DDA need to think very. We need to internalize that, because I think she's on the right point. But for all the reasons you said you weren't supporting it, I am supporting it, only because I think that what we have here is a compromise, and my definition of a compromise is that everybody is equally unhappy. And we should be unhappy for the reasons that Renee said, that a compromise is necessary. And I'm sure the city and the city administration is unhappy because they didn't get everything that they wanted by changing what their original intent was. But I think that some very careful thought was put into this by Sandy and her city council colleagues, and I think in the way that public bodies work, this is a very effective compromise. Although that being said, keeping the philosophical underpinnings, as articulated by Renee, is something that I think we need to do, and realize that it is a compromise. It is not a policy statement.
Keith?
That's pretty much what I was going to say. I completely agree with Renee's concerns, but I think it's an excellent compromise, and for that reason I'm going to be supporting it.
Any other comments? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed say no.
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 7 affirmative votes. Resolution passes. And there were 3 noes. Roger, back to you.
Well,
I'm going to, unfortunately, have to bring up a point of order.
Okay.
Since we weren't going to bring it up unless there was a vote that was a deciding vote. I have a concern that the state statute calls for a city executive to fill one of the DDA board positions. The statute, however, does not give any special rights or responsibilities to that voting member. It's just one of 12 voting members of the board, and I don't believe that the statute allows for any substitute or proxy vote by any member of the board, including the executive. So I question whether or not Councilman Graydon is an appropriate legal vote at the DDA board table today. And I don't think it's something we're going to resolve today, but I just wanted it to be on the record that I have concerns about the legitimacy of that vote.
Lee?
I'd be happy to respond, because that's a fair question to raise. Renee is correct that the statute calls for the chief executive of the municipality to serve on the DDA. The chief executive is defined as the mayor. Under the charter and our authorizing resolution that we passed in November of 2008, we have a line of succession establishing who is mayor in the event of the mayor's absence. And today, I am the mayor, and I'm the chief executive officer until 4 o'clock p.m. today at the city. I'm therefore serving in that capacity. But I appreciate the comment.
And we did also check with DDA counsel, who thought that there was the best argument based on the statutory language is that it has to be actually the city executive, him or herself, and in their absence, that position goes unfilled. That it's different than taking over the role of running a council meeting or functioning in other city business, actually whether or not it's an appropriate voting member. So I think this is something that we're going to have to probably have continued discussion about.
Any other comments?
Yeah,
Karen?
just, I guess, sort of a clarifying question. Under the bylaws, we, as long as we have a quorum, a majority of the members voting, even though that number is not a majority of the entire board, if it's a majority of the members at the hearing, then it legally passes. Is that correct?
No, I have my bylaws.
No?
I think it has to be, we have to have a majority of the seated numbers of the majority of the seated members of our board, not whether you're in attendance at a particular meeting, but whether or not there's actually a spot filled. So if we had an open vacancy on our board, we had 11 instead of 12. Are we 12?
Yeah.
Then it would be a majority of 11 or a majority of 9. But if we have 12 appointees, if we're absent for a day, it still becomes that 7 number.
So we need 7.
We need
to
7.
pass.
Okay.
And I just want to also say that as the chair of this meeting, I had questions as well, and I think it's uncertain as to whether or not. I mean, there's certainly evidence on both sides to say it could be allowed or not be allowed. I just think maybe we should put it back to our bylaws for further clarification or to get something so that we don't have a situation like this where we're calling it into question again. Because I even feel like it's not even the succession or who it is today. It's even just the mayor pro tem showing up. None of the rest of us get to send somebody in our place when we happen to be out of town. So understand that the city needs somebody in the place of the mayor to run the city, but showing up on our board, we don't have that. Russ may have somebody who takes over his Michigan Theater when he's not around, but he doesn't get to send that person here to our board to vote as well. So it just becomes a bit confusing, I think.
So rules on this point of order.
And does the resolution pass? Because we had 7-4, right?
I don't know. That's a part of Robert's rules that I am unfamiliar with.
We don't have a parliamentarian.
We don't have a parliamentarian when you need one.
I don't think it's a matter of parliamentary. I think it's a matter of the statute, the state statute.
Yeah.
And we can't create bylaws that change the validity or the non-validity of someone to vote. I think that if anybody here really cares, and I personally, even though I voted against the resolution, I'm not sure I would personally want to push it that far, but it may make sense to have a revote when John is here. I don't know, that's just a suggestion. I don't know how important it is that this thing go ahead right now.
I think that's an excellent way to do it. The rate change is slated to go into effect in the middle of August. We're not slated to have a board meeting in August, although there may be a special meeting for the parking structure project. If it's comfortable with you, why don't we bring it back either at that special meeting or in September? Bring it back. It's a juicier topic for a more lengthy discussion between DDA attorney and city attorney. They can go to Milwaukee and have that beer and let them then sort of hash it out for us and have them parse the exact nuances of the state statute. But for our purposes today, since
This is just a business item. Why don't we do as Gary suggested, bring it back in a later meeting just to revote?
Do we need a motion to do that?
I just had a comment. In past DDAs, before John Hefty was elected mayor, the city administrator attended the meetings. Al Gatta attended the meetings and Neil Berlin attended the meetings, and nobody objected to their voting. So I don't understand why we can't use the hierarchy of the city.
I think the question, though, is that the state statute specifies that the mayor
Or the city.
It's the chief executive officer, and in those instances, it was defined to be the city administrator. Currently, it's being defined to mean the mayor. So it's the chief executive officer of the city. So that's how that came to be.
Might I suggest that we're not going to resolve this by talking
No.
around the table about it, because basically is what we don't know is whether the mayor is the member or John Hefja is the member of the DDA board. So we need to get a ruling on this, and I think Susan suggested that the DDA's attorney and the city attorney essentially discuss it and provide to us their opinion, and that the minutes will reflect the fact that this was voted upon, but there was a question raised, and then we'll have to do whatever we have to do at the next meeting to deal with this appropriately, which may be nothing or it may be revote it, depending, as again Gary said, based on state statute, because our opinions aren't really important in this particular matter.
Sandy?
I guess I will have to concur, but I will also have to say there is a timeliness to this. If this doesn't pass today, that the residential parking, the parking meters are scheduled to begin to be ordered. So without our approval today, the city administrator's budget will go into effect, which will order the meters, and that's the course of action should we not pass this. Given that, I would prefer that the vote stand until there is an opportunity to say that it doesn't stand, because it does set off a chain of events that we will be unable to stop.
Is there any other executive committee, or is there any other way that the DDA could address this in a way that meets the time frame of the committee?
I'm sorry if I can ask a question. When you say that it has to be done today, when are the meters, the resolution slated to come forward?
I think that without and I don't have it with me, but I have to look at the specific language for this. We do have it.
This is the city's resolution. Yeah, just trying to find the resolution.
Well, again, might I suggest that we can't resolve this unless we re-vote and somebody changes their vote. I mean, today. A vote was taken, it's in the record. If the vote is upheld because of what the city attorney and our attorney say, then we're good. If it's not upheld, then it has to be dealt with. And it can be dealt with in terms of either convening another meeting and taking that vote, having an executive committee, or whatever other appropriate way in terms of bylaws dealing with it.
Well, my first question was who decides point of order? So like what happens in those very simple things when someone makes a resolution that is not supposed to be making the resolution? If the chair does, for instance, who decides the point of order in general?
We're perfect. We've never made that mistake.
Because I mean, it seems to me that if there's no resolution of the point of order, that Sandy's point is the appropriate one, that is the vote stands until that point of order is determined that there was something wrong with it.
And I think generally the chair would rule on a point of order, and I don't know that I feel comfortable ruling on a point of order which has legal implications. And seeing as how, I mean, if we've had input from our own DDA attorney on the issue, and we just, I mean, the fairest way to resolve it is either to have the vote be delayed, or to have the board vote on the point of order. I don't feel comfortable voting on a point of order which questions the legality of one voting member at the board.
Jennifer?
Yeah.
And again, I don't know procedure, but is it possible, we have an annual meeting following this. Is this something that we can bring back up in the annual meeting?
I think what's happening here is a dialogue about a state statute where I don't know that any of us.
I'm talking about a revote. I mean,
you could do this right now
We got John.
if you wanted to, just to recast it. I think it's.
I mean, yeah, somebody who, let's see, you can call the vote back to question if you were a dissenting member.
And there were 3 dissenting members.
And I'm happy to call the issue back up if we want to have a further discussion on it and have a revote. I don't know if I need a second.
Well, I would actually second that, which is kind of funny because I'm the one who started all this. But my point is not to try and stop this, because I realize that I'm not going to, that I am in the minority on this point, and it's not really even my goal. Like I said, I don't think it's that big of a deal. I just feel like it's my job to always remind the DDA of what our policies and our mission are, and when we stray from them, I think it's important that somebody be that voice. That's why I brought this up. So I would support bringing it back up again, so that the outcome will not rely on a questioned seat.
Yeah.
I just had a comment given to me that the recommendation is actually on an instance like this, that someone who's on the prevailing side is the one
On the
who made
prevailing
motion
side. Oh, right.
to bring it back to the table, and that's
Right, prevailing
I
side.
make a
got
motion
it.
to bring it back for.
Usually it's the
revote.
prevailing side of something that failed that brings it back. That's why I was confused. Roger brings it back for consideration. Is there a second?
Second.
Seconded by Russ. Is there any comments on the resolution so that we're all in the same place? The resolution to approve requested rate changes and revenue uses at 415 West Washington. Sandy.
I would encourage support for this because of the timing and the consequences if we don't go forward at this point.
Gary.
Yeah, I agree with that. I think, though, that in a way it was a lucky opportunity that I hope we don't miss. In other words, if this issue had been on a much, much, much weightier topic, we wouldn't have found such an easy way to resolve it. And maybe it'll never happen again, but I hope we don't just forget it. Maybe we should also, either a subcommittee or somebody, start thinking about talking with the city. I believe that even though this is a matter of state statute, that the DDA and the city could come to an agreement, a legally binding agreement, as to its interpretation of that statute, and unless someone else outside the DDA challenges it, then at least that would be our operating orders for the future. So this avoids the issue, and I'm glad it does, but I think it's really important that this not happen when it's a more serious issue where someone is not easily willing to change their vote just to avoid it.
I agree with Gary, and since I won't be here to have that discussion, the only thing that I would say is my concern is that if you have somebody step in and vote who has not been a part of the dialogue, that I have concerns about that. That is part of the reason that I question the validity of this, is somebody that hasn't been involved in our discussions stepping in just to cast a vote.
But I would ask you each then to speak to the resolution that is in front of us, because that was the
Why'd I
point
call
of
the
order.
question?
Russ is calling the question. All in favor of the resolution to approve rate changes at 415 West Washington, say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed say no.
No.
No. We have 2 no votes.
There you go.
The resolution passes with 8 votes affirmative. Roger. Any
Well.
further report?
Having, I believe, just set a record for the longest debate on a resolution at the DDA.
It's kind of like Alf
I
making a
finally
note call.
leave the board. I like that on my longest resolution debate on record. Our next meeting
Doesn't surprise me.
is Wednesday, July 22nd at 11 a.m. My report is thankfully over with.
John is still not here, so I would, unless somebody else would like to volunteer, I will give his report in his place. See if I can, and feel free to fill in if I missed something. So, Transportation Committee met, and we had Go Pass and Get Downtown program grant renewals as our major item of consideration for that committee meeting. Nancy Shore was there and gave us some information and made a request to the DDA to continue Go Pass and Get Downtown funding. Some points, we have the resolution that is on page 10. And you will see here, following the resolution, are the information that Nancy had given to the committee, which is a great report about why the funding should be renewed and Go Pass ridership and the cost of the program. So if somebody would move, let me just, actually I'll finish giving the report and then we'll move the resolution. This is unfamiliar to me, these committee reports. The DDA has provided funding for Go Passes in the Get Downtown program since 2001. Currently there are 470 downtown employers who are participating in the Go Pass program, with nearly 6,000 passes in the hands of downtown employees. This year, the DDA received a request from the Get Downtown program to renew its Go Pass funding. That would be from November of this year through October of 2010 in the amount of $336,668 for 6,800 Go Passes. This would be the maximum amount, and if fewer passes are distributed, our cost would be less. The committee is also recommending that the DDA approve a $16,000 grant to add value to the Go Passes by providing discount rides to Go Pass holders on the Ann Arbor-Chelsea Express and a new express bus service that is beginning from from Canton to Ann Arbor. And again, this is a maximum amount. If fewer people wanted to use it, the DDA cost would be less. And as I understand this, the money, this would be basically a subsidy to, if you have a Go Pass and you live in Chelsea or Canton and you want to use that express bus service that AATA is starting up, your Go Pass would qualify you for a subsidy on your express bus fare, which would make the bus fare equivalent to what the University of Michigan is subsidizing it for their employees, which is about half the cost. In addition, the committee is also recommending that the DDA continue its funding for the Get Downtown program, and this year it would be in the amount of $41,200. And so the total grant recommended by the committee is $393,868 to support these programs from November 2009 through October 2010, with the funds coming from DDA's parking fund on the alternative transportation line item. So if somebody would move the resolution for me. It's moved by Keith, seconded by Sandy. Is there discussion on the resolution? Lee?
I think that funding the Go Pass and the Get Downtown is one of the best things we do, because it shows that we have a commitment to alternative transportation. People think we're only about parking, and even though I'm proudly wearing my ePark shirt, we are about a lot more, and this is an example. And I particularly want to thank Nancy Shore. She has revitalized this program. You've done a great job. Thanks.
Any other comments? Okay, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Passes. Next committee meeting is Wednesday, July 22nd at 9 a.m. And at this meeting, the committee is going to discuss its mission and how the DDA fits into the larger interconnected transportation puzzle. Let's see. So now we are back to item 8, other DDA business matters.
Well, this was probably just more of a report than anything else, but both Joan and I are now part of the board that is looking at the biz for Main
Oh.
Street. It's the group has been meeting since even before we funded them, but since then they've been moving forward at exactly the timeline they had laid out. Actually, they've been meeting with property owners, business owners. I believe this week they met with residential members. It was this week or next that we're going to be doing that. They have hired a consultant and moving forward.
Any other DDA business? Sandy?
Clarification, on my role on the mutually beneficial committee.
Yes.
Renee was chair.
Oh, right.
If you would identify whether that is what your desire is or not.
Yes, I think that would be my desire. If you would be willing to take over as chair as well, it seems like that's a great thing for you to do, given your dual membership to both bodies.
Okay.
Thank you. Thank you for clarifying.
Russ be co-chair? Yeah, can Russ be? Yeah, can you two be co-chairs of the committee?
Any other DDA business? Audience participation. Is there anyone in the audience who would like to address us for 4 minutes? Motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Moved by Lee, seconded by Renee. All in favor?
Amen.
Aye. Okay, before anybody gets up and moves too far, if you want to stay, we have an annual meeting. Please feel free to leave because the business portion of our agenda is finished, but we do have an annual meeting, which our bylaws call for every July, which is essentially to elect our board officers for the following year. And so we need to have a roll call to open that meeting.
I'm glad I get to do this one. Unless Russ, you want to do this one again?
No, I relinquished my roll calling duties.
All right. Gary Boren.
Here.
Russ Collins.
Here.
Renee Graff.
Here.
Lee Gunn.
Here.
Jennifer Hall.
Here.
Roger Hewitt.
Here.
John Heapja.
President is the mayor.
President of the Mayor. Joan Lowenstein. John Moa. Keith Orr.
Here.
Sandy Smith.
Here.
John Split. Lee
Here.
Porto.
Thank you very much. So under item 2, new business, we have nomination and election of DDA board officers for 2009, 2010. Because we also have a broader audience now, that we have more media coverage and televisions. Usually this is fairly short. We don't say too much, but I just wanted to put in context the process for electing board officers, since to explain that to anybody who may be watching and not familiar with it. Our bylaws call for the nomination and election of officers every July. We serve 1-year terms. Even though our bylaws call for that to be done by nomination, typically we've done it by a slate of candidates, which the executive committee usually kind of talks about, and then we have them there, and we usually move them all and as one group of people, and we've done that for a very long time. There was some interest this year to. I'll back up for a minute. We had actually suggested a change to our bylaws about 2 years ago to reflect that custom of our board in our bylaws. The bylaws were not, that portion of our bylaw changes, suggested changes, and other changes were not approved by City Council. So we are left with our old bylaws, which the committee chose not to spend any more time reviewing, given that we'd spent a lot of time already and they weren't approved. So we have our existing bylaws. So we had some interest this year in actually following those bylaws instead of having a slate of candidates in front of us to have nominations from the floor. So this is uncharted territory for us as to how to do this. I'm going to manage the best I can in having elections with nominations and taking a vote. Our first up is treasurer, and I would ask if there are any nominations for treasurer.
Clarify a point of order
Yes,
before we start.
I'm sorry.
So does it require 7 votes for someone to be elected?
I think as the bylaws state, I think it's a 7 vote on anything.
Okay.
Can I just get the bylaws to clarify that? Because I did look at the voting piece, and I have my copy over here.
And John Split will do a shadow puppet show during the end.
It wouldn't be very good, Russ.
You could do it.
That's
Is that a whistle?
You can tell you're in the entertainment field. Those spaces are important to you.
Someone should be singing and dancing.
Okay, it is true. It's the bylaws say it's the majority of the members of the board in office, and should there be a and basically the membership is reduced because of conflict of interest, then it's the majority of the remaining members. We don't have that. We just have absences here, so it is 7. So going back to the nomination of officers for the office of treasurer. Lee.
I would like to nominate Roger Hewitt.
Do we have a second?
Second.
Seconded by John. Did I see another hand?
No, I was going to make another nomination.
Oh, okay. Are there any other nominations for treasurer? Renee.
I'd like to nominate Sandy.
We have Sandy. Is there a second to that nomination? Seconded by Keith. Are there any other nominations? Okay, so we will take a vote. This is the part that's unclear to me, but I think what we would do is just take a voice vote on the first nomination, and then take a voice vote on the second nomination. What seems the fairest?
Could I suggest a simpler way to do it is simply do a roll call and use the name either Smith or Hewitt.
Much simpler. Thank you, Lee. Okay, a roll call vote.
Okay. Gary Boren.
Smith.
Russ Collins.
Do it.
Renee Graff.
Smith.
Lee Gunn.
Hewitt.
Jennifer Hall.
Smith.
Roger Hewitt.
Hewitt.
John Heathjeff.
The mayor cast his vote for Roger Hewitt.
Keith Orr.
Smith.
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 Split.
Hewitt.
I count 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 for Hewitt. 1, 2, 3, 4 for Smith. Did I miss somebody? No, sorry.
I
5
counted
for
5.
Smith. I see it's a
It's a tie.
A tie.
We start again. Nominations for treasurer. Do we have to start again at nominations or just start again at votes?
Another way to do it, I'm just not to enter into it, since we're doing this as an uncharted territory, you could move to the next office and come back. I mean, there is no.
I think we should arm wrestle.
All right, let's do that. That's a heck of a way to lose, Roger.
You might lose.
I might lose.
I don't know if we can
Call it again.
speak to
Call
the
it again.
nominations or.
Call it again.
Okay, we call the vote again.
Call it again. Gary Collins.
Gary.
Gary Collins. God, this is not good. He was someone famous, wasn't he? Okay.
Yeah.
Gary Boren.
Smith.
Russ Collins.
Smith.
Renee Graff.
Smith.
Lee Gunn.
Hewitt.
Jennifer Hall.
Smith.
Roger Hewitt.
Hewitt.
John Heathjeff.
Mayor cast his vote for Roger Hewitt.
Keith Orr.
Smith.
Sandy Smith.
Smith.
And John Split.
Hewitt.
I count 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, count 6 for Smith, and the remaining votes for Hewitt.
I'm going to consult the bylaws just one more time. I see nothing that allows us to have less than a 7 vote for conducting of business. So we will vote again.
Gary Boren.
Smith.
Russ Collins.
Smith.
Renee Graff.
Smith.
Lee Gunn.
Hewitt.
Jennifer Hall.
Smith.
Roger Hewitt.
Hewitt.
John Heathjeff.
Roger Hewitt.
Keith Orr.
Smith.
Sandy Smith.
Smith.
John Split.
Hewitt.
I suggest we move on to the next office and come back to treasurer. So we have nominations for the office of secretary. Nominations for the office of secretary. Sandy,
I'll nominate Keith Orr.
is there a second to that
I'll
nomination?
second that.
Seconded by Lee. Do we have any other nominations for secretary?
Move unanimous ballot for Keith Orr for secretary.
All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Keith Orr, you are our new board secretary.
That was easy.
Last time. Nominations for the office of vice chairperson. John.
Joe Lowenstein.
Joan Lowenstein. Is there a second for Joan
I'll
Lowenstein?
second that.
Seconded by Roger. Are there any other nominations for vice chair? All in favor of Joan Lowenstein becoming the next board vice chair, say aye.
Aye.
It is passed. Nominations for the office of chair.
I'd like to nominate John Split.
Is there a second to that
Second.
nomination?
Second.
Seconded by Roger. Are there any other nominations for the office of chair?
Let's keep things exciting.
Let's.
I'd like to nominate Gary Bourne.
Is there a second for the nomination of Gary Boring?
Second.
Seconded by Renee. Any other nominations for the office of chair? We will have a roll call vote.
All right, Gary Boren,
Warren.
Russ Collins,
Split.
Renee Graff,
Boren.
Lee Gunn,
Split.
Jennifer Hall,
Boring.
Roger Hewitt,
Split.
John Heapja,
Split.
Keith Orr,
Bourne?
Sandy Smith,
Split.
John Split.
Split.
Okay, let me do this again. I think I have it. Gary
Warren.
Boren, Russ Collins,
Split.
Renee Graff,
Boren.
Lee Gunn,
Split.
Jennifer Hall,
Boring.
Roger Hewitt,
Split.
John Heapja,
Split.
Keith Orr,
Bourne?
Sandy Smith,
Split.
and John Split.
Split.
I count 6-4. Did I get that right? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Sorry, 6 to 4.
I have a question.
We go.
It appears that we seem to have difficulty electing a treasurer and a chairperson. Is it possible to just adjourn the annual meeting until the next meeting? Or something? I mean, I don't know what we're going
Our
to do.
bylaws does
Bylaws
say,
does speak to the annual meeting taking place in July.
Mhm.
So I think you would have a chance to table this meeting if you wanted to bring the meeting back again later in the month. I think that's within
we
your.
have 90 days. If the election of officers does not occur at the annual meeting, the board shall cause the election to be held at a regular or special meeting of the board within 90 days of the annual meeting.
And that takes us to September, so we could adjourn this meeting until September and then reconvene in September
To elect our treasurer and chair.
and chair.
Sounds like
That's
a
my
good,
motion.
good motion to, is there a
Second.
second?
Discussion.
Discussion.
Let's see. I think we get at least one round of roll call votes over on the first one. I think we should do it again on this time, just to give people an opportunity to say, do we want to break a log jam here?
Okay. We had two, do you withdraw your motion? Is that
I'll withdraw my
different?
motion until after the
Okay.
revote.
Withdraw my
Sure.
second.
All right. A new roll call vote on the office of chair.
Gary Boren,
Warren.
Russ Collins,
Split.
Renee Graff,
Boren.
Lee Gunn,
Split.
Jennifer Hall,
Boren.
Roger Hewitt,
Split.
John Heapja,
Split.
Keith Orr,
Split.
Sandy Smith,
Split.
John Split.
Split.
We have a chair, 7.
But I will say that this runs into the same problem as the other vote where the contested seat was the deciding factor.
If we adjourn the meeting now and re-adjourn it, we perhaps will have a ruling on.
Well, part of the problem in the voting of today is that we have 2 board members absent, which I'm not counting the mayor, I'm counting the other 2 board members which are absent, which rarely happens at our board meetings, which is making the voting achieving that 7 vote difficult in some cases.
I think the point is that, you know, a vote was taken, and that vote will either be upheld within the next 90 days, or it won't be, and then we'll have to revote.
In the meantime, we still have not elected a treasurer, so I would like to reintroduce my motion to adjourn this meeting and reconvene it at the September board meeting.
And second still holds on that.
Yes.
Is there any further discussion on that tabling of tabling of the election of treasurer?
Who is the current treasurer?
Renee.
Would I ask that Renee remain in that position until that position is filled?
I think that's automatic, but yeah. I could add that to my motion that the current treasurer remain.
But she's not, I mean, your term ends now.
Right, as soon
Or
as,
until
well,
you're
my term ends
reappointed.
as soon as my
Appoint-
replacement has been approved by council. I'm not sure what the time frame is for that.
Well, your term ends the end of July, but you hold your position until a replacement is
Correct.
found.
So my point is that checks that need to be signed would be signed by you, which is important.
Okay. Any further discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Are there any opposed? The election of treasurer is postponed until our September board meeting. Under new business, item B, DDA committees to be reappointed for 2009-10, operations committee, capital improvements, partnerships, transportation. Any changes to the membership of those committees? Anybody who wants to remove themselves or add themselves?
Somehow I'm on 4 committees here. And I have been going to partnerships and transportation.
It just means you get on the email list.
I would like to remove myself from I've been showing up occasionally, but I'm not going to be a regular attendee at transportation committee meetings.
Okay.
And you can remove me from partnerships, since I think I'm on every other committee. 3's enough.
Thanks, Roger.
The executive committee becomes the new DDA officers plus the previous DDA chair.
Mhm. Do you want a motion to approve all this?
I don't know if we need
I don't
one.
think we need one. Okay.
I think this is just organizing ourselves portion. Anything else related to committees? All the chairs willing to continue serving as chairs? Great. Item 3, staff thank you.
On behalf of DDA staff, and there are a few of us here in this room, we wanted to extend you our thank yous for a year that was perhaps one of the toughest that I can remember, and some of us go back a ways. This was a great year. We got a lot done. It's amazing to see projects going forward that we've talked about in maybe 5 years in the case of things like the division. Wayfinding, which was a glimmer in someone's eye from an IDA conference. The structure moving forward, which is going to help us to plan for the redevelopment of some of the core area of our downtown. We spent a lot of time talking after the committee meetings and after the board meetings, and I think they would join me in saying this is perhaps one of the most important years DDA has had in all of the many years we've been around. And we just want to thank you. You are volunteers. Give your time freely to us as community members. You are unheralded champions, and we wanted to thank you for all your hard work and your commitment and your passion for downtown. So thank you.
Item 4, motion to adjourn.
I think it deserves a party.
Yeah,
How about
today.
How about tonight?
How about tonight?
How about that?
What time?
How about 7 o'clock?
7 o'clock.
Where?
Go.
Top of the park.
You can ride your bike.
That's true. Tonight is the bike night. Top of the park.
I think so.
And
Adjourn.
Let's
alternative
put that there.
transportation.
The party.
Move
had
we
to go.
adjourn.
All in favor?
We are adjourned.
Well, it wasn't at all.